Welcome to another episode of Mindful City, Tuning into Life, a podcast to discover and celebrate the many ways that our city is using mindfulness in our practical daily lives. Welcome to the first episode of the Mindful City podcast. My name is Helen Hall. So today we have as our special guest, Jodi Rehm, the creator of GreenTree Goddess. GreenTree Goddess seeks to educate, to provide tools to the community, ways of healing oneself, to change their perceptions on how to live, and provide tools for how to be in this world. And one of the healing methods that Jodi is a inspiration and creator of is the body code method, which involves a specific breathing method to heal structural, emotional, and psychological traumas. And so we're here to speak a little bit about how that happens. But first, I wanted you to introduce yourself and GreenTree Goddess.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Jodi.
Hi, Helen. So excited. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I'm so touched that you are the first person I get to interview. And I'll have to tell the listeners because I met Jodi actually by going to a therapeutic yoga class, which was essential in my healing journey. And we've remained friends. Actually, we were friends the moment we met. It was instant.
It's instant.
It was just like, that's it.
That's
We're
my
done.
friend.
That's
my
it.
friend.
And so I couldn't think of anyone better to assist me in just beginning this journey of putting the podcast out there under Mindful City.
Thank you.
And so, welcome.
Oh, I thank you for
thank
having
you, my
me.
friend.
Oh, my friend, thank you. I am thrilled and honored to be the first. And instantly was in love with you. And we were one of those people I'm like, she has to be my friend.
I'm honored.
So thank you for having me. And yeah, I remember in the teaching of the therapeutic yoga class, and how far the work has come even since that day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And understanding what this process is, and realizing that what GreenTree Goddess wants to provide as a whole, as an umbrella, if there's just not one modality of healing, to understand, to come into our own oneness, is to be in union with yourself from a physical, emotional, psychological platform. And I believe many of us only come at it from one. People will do it all mentally or all physically, and they don't understand that there is a divine union within all of it. And that's where I have found the body code method has brought that, and it did it for me. The personal discovery, I love explaining this to people, is that I had been in the greatest depression I had been in over 15 years. And I couldn't understand. I was in pain and depression. And I remember I was in a hammock and I literally was having it out with God. And I was so mad. I said, God, I am in all this pain and emotional depression. And how can I be feeling this way when I'm laying in a hammock in this beautiful sunshine? I could not understand. And I was just sitting in that pain. And out of nowhere, I started to breathe in a specific way that opened up this area of my body that I was feeling this pain in. And I remember it was like seeing it happen while it was happening. And I was like, just keep breathing the breath. Just keep breathing the breath. And I was like, what is that? And I had a vision of the shape the breath was in. And then I kept going, okay, there's more to this. There's more to this. And I realized as I was discovering this breath, that it literally goes into the structural lines of the body, unlocking the connective tissue, which is what holds our pain body. The structural, or also known as the fascia, literally holds our emotional body, and that the brain is sending repeat patterns to. Right?
It's very interesting. Actually, I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier about healing on the many different levels. Because just for a moment to look at how the world is dealing with disease right now, dealing with pain, and treating the symptoms. I think we're all at a place where we almost all agree that we're treating the symptoms and not going to the depth of what is the cause or what might be, contributing to those symptoms occurring. I think it's pretty amazing because I think on many levels, and there's different modalities where we acknowledge that and that people are working, okay, I need to see someone or talk to someone about it or spiritual, but you're specifically talking breath here. And it's interesting because I wouldn't have thought about it. It's one of the things we do all the time. I mean, if we didn't breathe, and I'm thinking, of course that affects us. Of course, like even the quality of the air affects us. Everything that we breathe, that we take in. And I wouldn't have thought that would be the modality through which, healing, would occur. So that's a beautiful experience that you had on seeing that and experiencing that within you. So how did that come into this understanding of the body code?
Wow. Well, I've done years and years of hands-on therapy with people, holistic and therapeutic body work. And I have gone to school for breath work. And so I studied breath work, but I didn't do a whole lot of that in my private practice. Breath work can be extremely intense with people, where you do a complete connective breath and it creates this pump. And the more you do it and the more you do it, it sets people into places of trauma and awakens parts of their system that have been closed off. Right? So in just the hands-on therapy, I have been able to witness people's breathing patterns and discover where they were locked into. And I've been blessed to have a gift where I can literally experience the emotional trauma that was blocked in their system. So as I've been doing the work on people with the hands-on, the areas of their body where they're restricted or not breathing, or the pain body has been, locked into, I literally can experience the pain, sometimes directly to the point of where it was created. So much so I can describe people's dress, shoes, countertops, that which actually took place in those moments.
Wow.
And that's all in the human body. So having had almost 20 years professionally doing just that, to then having to go into my own.
That's the tougher journey right there.
Oh, it's the one we like to avoid the most.
Of course.
We're really good.
Because there's a lot of people out there we can help.
I'm a really good helper, Helen. I'm a really good helper.
Let me help. There's all these people need my help out there.
Just keep giving.
That's the inward journey. Oh, that's a tough one.
And that's why I knew I was in my depression.
Yeah.
I knew that it was part of my life's journey, that I was sent and directed to make a grand move in my life from a very unstable place. And I feel like I just got tossed. And in doing so, everything I had once identified myself as for years and years and years was taken away. And so here I am. I no longer had people to help. And that was my primary.
Yeah.
I dedicated my life to helping other people, and then no one was there for me to help.
It's interesting how that falls away so that you can have that focus.
It was crazy. It was the most
God,
painful experience. And so how I got out of the depression was not just through the breath work and the pain, but it was helping people on the most minute scale. Right?
In what way?
Making sure that the person at the register that I was talking to had some level of acknowledgement. Could I bring a smile to their face? Could I talk to the person that I was opening the door for? No matter how sad and depressed I had been, I was looking around and saw people that I was like, they look worse than how I feel.
Yeah.
And I went, I can at least make them feel better by saying something to them. It's a beautiful shirt, nice shoes. Isn't that a funny story? Did you see that happen? Engage with them and acknowledge our humanness and acknowledge that we all carry pain. And that in itself is what started to dig me out of the experience, realizing that we're all in this together. And if I'm experiencing pain, then they're experiencing pain.
Isn't it interesting, honestly, the paradox of pain and depression is that when you feel you have nothing to give and you give at that moment, it's amazing the experience you have of you experience things that you didn't know you had. So it's almost like this paradox, like you feel like nothing is there and you make that effort to give, and it's like you realize that there was something there that you had to give.
Isn't that, as you're saying that, I'm literally going, okay, well, depression is a black hole, right? So you're in a place of depression, you're in the black hole. Well, in fact, that black hole is full of space.
Right.
Why would you not have something to give?
Exactly.
However, when we're in that black hole, our self-sabotaging perception is that we are nothing.
Exactly.
And that I have nothing to give. When in fact, you have everything to give. The black hole was created because we have that much to give.
Exactly.
Yeah. How many people I see in depression and they just sit in that depression and they don't want to give.
Right.
And it's like, don't they understand? It's in the giving that we receive.
It's like seeing, because it's almost as if, and of course, I do acknowledge that there is medical depression, and I have to acknowledge, because it is just the way that we live nowadays, and I do see that. And then there's many forms of depression, and of course, many ways that people deal with that or can, choose to heal with that. But I can only speak, for example, for depression that I go through. And that's mostly exactly what you're saying. It's really that space where it's just an understanding of where you feel that you've been knocked down so many times, or you have failed so many times, or things that you had really wanted didn't follow through. And so it all keeps almost reaffirming this unworthiness of myself. And even though I know, like, many years of meditation and study that I've done, like, I know it's an illusion, but that's not how depression works. Depression is like, no, it's real. You're unworthy, And
can we swear in this? Like, because you're a piece of shit, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
much,
But that's exactly what you feel, because it's like nothing I've done has worked out. Nothing I've contributed, nothing, and it's not coming back to me. So it makes sense, because there is an illusion that it's not there, but the reality is what you already know. So sometimes these small acts of kindness towards others, these small acts of giving, very small acts of giving, just awaken. They like remove that veil for a moment where you were stuck in this idea that you weren't. And that's how it, kind of helps. And to think of that is maybe that's why, in meditation, and I'm not a formal Hatha Yoga practitioner. I'm just really only now, I've always done Raja Yoga meditation, but I'm only now getting into a Hatha Yoga practice. And I'm understanding so much the importance of breathing and how that brings us back to a place of realizing that I'm there, like there's something there's breath, that's coming through, and why that is so, important. And something that you said earlier about breath, where you have this ability to see where it's stuck, right?
Yes.
I want to ask you about that, because now you're making me wonder, is that pain because there's no breath flowing through there? Or is it an accumulation of breath? Like, what is that blockage that you're talking about?
It can vary.
Okay.
It can vary. I love to give this example for people. If when you were a child, you went and were putting your hand in the cookie jar and someone came over to you and slapped your hand really fast and said no and referred to you as a bad person for having put your hand in the cookie jar, that child has the potential to have downloaded a fight or flight response to cookies. Now, how we as human beings decide to categorize that is our own file cabinets, right? So a fight or flight response can respond in a very specific patterning. And you'll see this in photos of, we'll even say military, somebody who all of a sudden hears a gunshot, the tail will tuck, the head will come down, fight or flight response, right? You can see it in animals, fight or flight response. The whole tailbone will be tucked underneath, the head will come down, and you collapse on the diaphragm, right? Very basic and simple. There are very subtle ways of seeing in people, and we're really great at hiding it. We are so fantastic at hiding it. However, again, like I said, I'm very blessed that I can witness it. I can see it in people's patternings on a really subtle level. So how the breath pattern is created is really our own. Right. And I'm having a flash right now of having a client where I remember doing body work and I touched her arm and immediately I get tossed back to being about a 5 to 7 year old child where she was grabbed and yanked by her arm. And I'm in the experience with her. So she had an emotional, physical trauma on a physical level, an emotional response. She stored those cellular memories in her body, right? So that's a fight or flight response, which would be in the pelvic floor area typically, right? But the original imprint was in the arm, so that imprint was still in the arm. However, as I connected in, you could very much feel how her pelvic floor and her lower belly were also traumatized by it. So we will create a breathing pattern around our trauma.
Okay.
That's what happens. We will create breathing around trauma or limitations. This blows my mind. Believe it or not, we will create a breathing pattern around our clothes.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Women, especially our bras.
Yeah.
We will not breathe where that closed in area is. We will breathe everywhere else around it because psychologically we feel like
it's constrained.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So in all of those areas, we should learn how to change the patterning, right? Learning how to discover what our patterns are so we can come to a new level of expansion and changing them to gain access.
Is that how you begin the approach in healing through the body code method? Or how do you see? Because I do feel you were mentioning that it's structural, emotional, psychological. So how do you approach, any person that's coming to you and where you've already observed where some of this is sitting? How do you work with someone like that?
I usually take everyone from a one-on-one basis.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I'm in a classroom environment, then I will read the room itself. And I will go with where the majority is limited. If I'm in a classroom environment, I will always start a practice based on, okay, I'm feeling everyone stuck here. The majority of the room is limited here. I'll start to gain access through that pathway and then lead them into the next pathways. If I'm in a one-on-one session, same. I will, and oftentimes it depends on the person. I will sometimes make them activate where it's the most easiest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Because building trust, I want people to actually heal. So in order to obtain that healing, there needs to be trust.
Yeah,
my people,
absolutely.
you
because the trauma is already closing you off. You're not even breathing through those areas like you were just saying. So
that's my favorite, right?
Yeah.
My favorite is like somebody's in the middle of a trauma. Well, just breathe.
Yeah, everybody's like, yeah, just like, really?
Right? I mean, that helps every
Thank
time.
you so
that
much.
helps every time. And I have methods for that with people as well. How to deal with people in traumatic experiences. The worst thing you can possibly say to someone is breathe. That all that does is re-trigger that they're a failure.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, they're already having a hard time breathing, because that's sometimes where that anxiety comes in. Because that's actually something else I was going to ask you, because I was talking to a friend of mine, and she's been kind of going through this panchakarma treatment, this Ayurveda cleansing treatment.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she shared with me, because she just is going through it still, was the amount. As soon as she wakes up in the morning, there's this issue, like she feels like she can't breathe. There's this anxiety that comes over. So it's so interesting how anxiety is connected to breath, of all things.
Oh, well, everything's about the breath pattern.
Yeah.
Everything. So, you and I were speaking earlier about this. And so, it's funny now that you say her, I'm already seeing her patternings.
Yes.
And it had, it's in the thyroid. So her throat's locked down.
Yeah.
I can see where her diaphragm's connected into it too. She probably gains greater access in her pelvic floor. So I would start her in the breathing of her pelvic floor to gain access there, to then create the pump up into her body, so we could eventually open up her throat.
Yeah.
That's how I would work with somebody of that level. And I'm going to clear that right now, because I'm very much in her energetic system. I apologize. Thank you. And you can see.
Thanks for your service.
You're welcome.
We're thanking you. Thank you for joining us. And I do appreciate that, because it does highlight and explain that, not just for us, but also for listeners. And so I appreciate you going into that.
Thank you. And that's part of I'm very blessed to have that level of gift. I do not need to be in someone's presence to know their trauma. Their energy system will appear in front of me, and I can work with you at any distance.
Gift you have.
Thank you. Yeah. And what happens for me is I can actually embody it for them. I actually feel it in my physical body. And so that's how I can kind of know where to go with people too.
So how do you see, and what would you like the community to know about the body code method, and what is your vision of how that can come to life for you?
So in the process of, I refer to it as a download. In my download of the body code method, what was given to me or spoken to me in the process was our bodies are simply their sacred geometry. And the breathing pattern we work with is directly linked into the sacred geometry patterns. So you can piecemeal it, you can break it down into segments of the body to gain access to the whole body, right? Mm-hmm. And so what they have shown me is that we speak of ascension.
Yes.
Right? And most people think that the ascension process is leaving our bodies. We're getting to higher dimensional realms by leaving our bodies. In fact, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. Ascension is we are looking to ascend into the human form.
Yeah, right? That's actually a really beautifully different perspective.
Thank you. It's unbelievable to understand this, that we as a soul being wish to incarnate within this human form to its fullest extent.
Mm-hmm.
What I have witnessed, and take it with a grain of salt when I say, past life, some people don't believe in reincarnation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It, one way or another, it doesn't matter. There's a code that comes into the physical body. So when we are in the womb, when the fetus is growing, it literally starts pulling in cellular memory from the mother. If the mother is in a time of trauma, that child takes on the trauma.
Yeah.
If the mother is processing her karmic line of energy from mother to mother to mother, the child now takes on the same exact energy code, right? Mm-hmm. So that's literally placed into the baby in the womb, right? That cellular... From the beginning. From the beginning. And so what they've shown me is that the diaphragmatic shapes of the body, and we are filled with diaphragmatic shapes within the whole entire body. Each diaphragmatic shape is meant to breathe simultaneously and in harmony together. When does that happen?
I haven't seen that happen. But it's obviously possible.
It's possible. It is possible. The most, I think, majority of us have seen it is in infants.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
When the baby comes out of the womb is probably the purest that they're going to be. And they look like these beautiful accordions, like they expand and contract in harmony together from root to crown, from arches of the feet of the crown of their head. They expand and contract and expand and contract. It's beautiful. However, we then go through life, right? And so we fall, we are abandoned at different times when we needed somebody. Yes. Just the simple, they cut the umbilical cord too soon.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Trauma,
immediate trauma.
Exactly.
And so all of those traumas are taken into the cellular memory. So as the soul is entering into the body, what I have realized is that the soul's starting to come in and it hits a blockage of trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
We then we go on repeat.
Oh.
The soul, right?
It's unfortunate.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
The breath will get you out of it.
Yeah.
I love this. When you're in the middle of writing something, right? If you're in streaming consciousness, you're just breathing and typing, breathing and typing, breathing and typing, or breathing and writing, breathing and writing. And the second you have to think about it, Wednesday or Thursday,
you stop.
You hold your breath.
Mm-hmm.
When we hold our breath, we go into mind space. When we're organically breathing, like a pumping action, it's this harmonic, beautiful heart space. Mm-hmm. It's so pure. And so gaining access to that, the more you do breath work, you just naturally breathe in times of trauma and chaos without even thinking about it. Right.
That's when you've addressed also the flow of that
Completely.
breath, within you. And so that is the ascending.
Into
the body.
Yes.
It's just an amazing way to look at it.
Thank you. Well, I've been really blessed to work with people with cerebral palsy.
Wow.
Right? So working with someone with cerebral palsy, as they're trying to enter into their body, they go into complete fight or flight. One of my girls, her eyes would flutter. I would try and look at her, and she would just keep fluttering out of her body. And my favorite is she turned to me one day, and I said, what is this? And she quotes some sort of disease that the medical professionals gave her. And you can tell how important that disease was to me, because I was like, yeah, that ain't it. The second she said it, I was like, that's just BS. She's afraid to be in her body.
Right. There's not that control of it or that connection to it.
Yeah. And her whole body was so in trauma. Her spine's completely fused. She has limited access to her limbs. Yeah. And so as we started to work together, I would create a safe zone for her. The most beautiful gift when this girl looked at me one day and literally goes, "You are my safe place."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We just continued to work on bringing her into her body little by little. And I would find access. Okay, good. We're safe till about the clavicles. Good. Let's gain access, anchor her in there. And then eventually I noticed where the real limitation was. Mm-hmm. And so I taught her how to gain access to that. And then once we gained access to that, that girl barely ran. Barely. I know when she is in complete stress in her life is when she does the eye thing again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she has that focus now, that ability to.
Oh, she's anchored in.
Wow.
She just had a surgery this last week, actually. And that's what we went into. And I looked at her and I said, "Where's your anchor?"
Yes.
And she went right, because she was afraid to go into anesthesia.
Right. This is like a sense of loss of control. Like loss. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense.
And letting her know, I mean, her soul does not believe her body's a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Why would her soul think her body's a safe place? It's failed her.
Right.
And that's part of what we talk about. Do not judge this.
And that's a beautiful example to say of basically her ascending into the body, as you've been saying.
Yes.
In this work that you're doing.
The more we do it, when I first worked with her, her legs were like a fin. In order to separate her legs from them, I would have to pry them open.
Mm.
I would have to place in between, shimmy, and move the legs apart. It was like I was so afraid. She was so stiff.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like the littlest movement would break her.
Right.
Right? As we've gained access and got her soul more and more into her body, the oxygen and blood flow in her legs, we have access almost all the way down to her feet now.
Incredible. That's incredible.
Unbelievable. Where I would barely touch the bottom of her foot. If I even gently touched the bottom of her foot, flip out. She could literally remember them shoving needles in her when she was just born in the NIC unit. She literally was like, she'd scream it out to me. Just barely touching her foot.
Wow.
I literally was utilizing something on her the other day that was vibrating her body on such a level to help ease tension on her feet. Barely even retracted them.
Wow. That's just incredible. That connection is incredible. And I didn't look at it that way, at all.
Yeah.
And I'm just thankful. I know that even though I've already spoken to you and I already know of the amazing work that you do, obviously. The depth of which you've shared with me today is even still, I'm in awe of what you're doing. And even though you're my first podcast, I definitely know it's not the last. We have so much to go into and so much that we can learn. And I would love to have GreenTree Goddess back here to guide us on our healing journey.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much too. Thank you. Honored, Helen.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us. And we hope forward to talk to you all very soon.
Have a beautiful evening.
Evening, morning, night, whatever it is for you.
Whatever it is, right?
Bye.
Bye.
Find out more about this healing method and Jodi by searching Facebook for the GreenTree Goddess and the Body Code Method.